What is your strange hobby? Sometimes when I'm bored I will Google bars and restaurants in other countries. Look at their menu and try to decide what I would get to eat, drink if I was there. It helps me kill time, and who knows, maybe one day I'll be able to eat at one of these places. I go to the courthouse and I watch trials. The day I turned 30, I saw a former policeman get 30 years jail time for murdering an old lady. That had some kind of resonance for me. I like to put Spanish subtitles in a YouTube channel about Rubik cubes. I try hobbies then stop before I get good at them. Is here a hobby of failing at hobbies? People say jack of all trades, master of none, like it's a bad thing, but the full saying is jack of all trades, master of none. Better than master of one. Enjoy that you have such a capacity for exploring your curiosity. I collect rubber ducks. Coming up on 200. I have an aunt that collects Donald ducks. Do you have a Donald Duck rubber duck? I do! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Once I dig it out of the pile I'll post a picture. I age fine pipe tobacco. I make origami cranes. I've made at least 2,000 in the last couple years. Congrats on your 2 wishes. Watch old political debates and make shitty music on GarageBand. GarageBand was what convinced us we were born to be musicians. Until we forced someone other than our parents to listen to it and got a cruel wake-up call. I like to put for rectal use only pharmaceutical stickers on things in public. Bananas. Light beer. The groins of mannequins. The potential is endless. And it's a cheap hobby as you can get 1,000 of the stickers for a few bucks on Amazon. I like to rent airplanes and just go fly. Helps melt away all the issues. What's your strange career? Nothing cool, sadly. I'm one of the aviation managers at an international airport. Sounds way cooler than it is. Collect rocks and eat them. Okay, Abigail. I don't know if this is strange, but I shoot guns. As part of a program by the Swiss government, which allows teenagers above the age of 15 to learn how to use the Swiss Army rifle. How many different guns are attached to it? And what's the gun equivalent of the Little Scissors? A .22 single shot. The .32 is just way too bulky for everyday carry. I run incredibly detailed simulations of sports leagues using pen and paper, children's toys, and occasionally elements of chance like dice, coins, etc. I occasionally use a licensed video game of a specific sports league in order to keep better track of stats and trends. I cross-stitch things for newlywed friends and family. Inspirational sayings that show their love and devotion to each other, like I would fight a sharktopus for you, with a picture of someone fighting sharktopus, or whenever you fart, I will say it was me, with a picture of someone farting in an elevator. Designing new types of pasta. It's fun to think of all the elements of it. Shape, ingredients, texture, etc. and how you can innovate upon them to create something completely new. I always loved sculpture, but this is even better because it's pasta and I get to eat it. You are the past architect. Competitive air hockey. It's a fine game, except when you dangle a finger into the playing surface and get wrecked for it. Tell me about it. The tip of my pinky is mostly scar tissue. I've worn a thimble when it was bad. I try to predict the box office. How much money movies make. It has been a couple of dire months lately. I'm an archer and make my own arrows sometimes, and I like to take apart old electronics and make specialty arrows that can shock and start fires. I tie knots. It's pretty relaxing. I do it a lot more now because there's nothing else to do. I can't go sailing, so I just tie knots and think about the water. Not to diverge from your stated hobby too far, but how do you get into sailing? My dad and my grandfather sailed, so I always grew up with their sea stories. I always wanted to go out and sail. It wasn't until about 4 years ago when I actually got into it. I did sailing camps and joined Sea Scout. Best way to describe us is Boy Scouts, but only maritime stuff. I started off sailing dinghies, then I started cruising. I'm now working my way to start yacht racing. Sailing is both the most fun and terrifying thing you can do. Talking to myself like I'm going to be a famous YouTuber or celebrity that talks a lot about stuff. Been doing this my whole life because I was lonely and do it a lot now over the quarantine. I go trash fishing. I go out in a little boat and hunt for trash. My son invented this hobby after we caught no fish. I'm all in now. I pull hundreds of pounds of trash out of the Detroit River each time I go. So that's where it all went. Can't have shit in Detroit. I collect my body parts. So far all my milk teeth, 6 extracted teeth, 1 toenail. I also sharpen blades. Yeah, I tend to keep quiet about these hobbies. When you put those two together it goes from strange to creepy. I play a completely text-based role-playing MMO game called a MUD. Multi-user dimension, dungeon, domain. There are hundreds of these games and offshoots of the style out there. The one I play is called Acacia, a semi-generic high fantasy world which has been in operation since 1998. Oh my god, I played Acacia something like a billion years ago. I'm amazed it's still running. Used to play dozens of MUDs, moos, and mushes. Even helped build and admin a couple for a few years. But none that really took off. I like to read about serial killers. Me too. Be careful though. I was in a bad place and hyper-focused on reading about murders and killers and gave myself a kind of secondhand PTSD and found I couldn't sleep and was starting to get a little agoraphobic. Moderation is important when learning about the worst humanity has to offer. World building. I love to create worlds. I never follow through with writing stories in them though. I collect bricks. I have a collection of 25 or so. But there are people who have collections in the many thousands. My favorites are a 50 centimeters handmade Italian brick, with fingerprints of the maker in it, and a McFeely fire brick made by the McFeely Fire Brick Co., which was founded by Mr. Rogers' grandparents. His full name was Fred McFeely Rogers. Sewing pillows. Not necessarily weird, but a hobby not everyone has. Watching those videos of the guys making mansions with pools in the forest out of bamboo and clay, and using nothing but a machete stick thing. Sometimes I like to go on Google Maps and find some random little town in the States. I live in England, and go down to Roadview and have a little zoom around small town America. I don't know why, but it fascinates me. I like to make small statues of people I know out of Spam. Then take them to the park and take pictures of pigeons eating the monsieur. Watching figure skating. I wouldn't call it a hobby, but I enjoy figure skating. Is it weird? They are insanely talented. I love it. It's so fascinating. I genuinely root for them while I'm watching and find the performances very thrilling. Tried to bring some of my friends into the sport, but they didn't even give it a chance. Where I live most people don't even know exactly what figure skating is. So it's usually taken awkwardly when I hype about it. Choking people and getting choked. To clarify, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where the goal is to get the other person to tap out using either chokes or joint locks. Hey man, you can just say you're into BDSM, it's okay, cheeky smiley face. Playing old video games on CRTs. Download video games and never play them. You also buy used bicycles and repair them but don't really ride as much anymore. I'm a casual herbal witch. I pick all sorts of herbs in meadows and in the woods, dry them and give them away to people who have ailment X and just can't get to the bottom of it. Herbalism is awesome as long as you know what you're doing. It's a long-term commitment because you have to know where shit grows and when it grows. Make your time and the weather align to go pick that shit. You gotta have space to dry that shit and store that shit, and you gotta have a huge supply of that shit if it's gonna do anyone any good, because herbal infusions must be drunk on a regular basis for the foreseeable future to make a difference. The upside is that you can really cure all sorts of unexpected shit with it. I lost 20 kilograms just because herbalism, and basically never to get a cold because herbalism is your V. Which and yo, what are your top tips? Sorry for the generic question. Basically a top 5 healthiest herbs. Well, there isn't such a thing as top healthiest, right? Because it depends on what you are trying to do. If you want to improve your stomach ulcers, it's calendula. If you want to improve your lymphatic system, it's Gallium verum, bed straw. And if you've got a cold, you should drink lots of nettle tea. A lot of herbs have good effects on digestion, and that in turn will give you good effects on the rest of your body. If you improve your intestines, you might end up sleeping better, losing weight, lessen the pressure on your joints, and that will minimize the inflammation in your body. Ease up on your heart and your kidneys. Herbalism is basically fixing the underlying issue, and that will land you with a lot of chain reaction effects that you haven't even anticipated. Hiking in whiteouts. I go to an extremely high number of concerts and a growing number of music festivals annually. These past few months have been rough. Our neighbor is a well-known blues musician, and he put on a benefit concert for a local homeless shelter in his driveway last Saturday. We all stayed 6 feet away from one another and listened to him and his pals jam and play covers for 2 hours. It was heaven, and they collected $700 for charity. I don't know if it counts, but it truly is a hobby to me, and that's refreshing my fruit bowl. I replace things daily, and each time I buy fruit, get something a bit different to pop in there. I honestly really get a lot out of it. I sit in a dimly lit room and think of endless possibilities of different things. Language, places, people, life and death. I create people, destroy them, make different languages and places. But I don't like to publish them for some reason. I go backpacking and hiking with my goats. Not sure if that counts as a hobby or way of life though. Bicycle touring. I load a bunch of camping gear onto the back of my bicycle and disappear for a while. Sometimes it's just a weekend to a state park a day's ride from my home. Other times it's the better part of 7 months riding 5,300 miles around the US. I collect sports figurines. Have you watched the Toy Galaxy History of Starting Lineup figures on YouTube? It's a good one. Astrophotography. I volunteer at furry cons. I like to think about doing things, start doing things, and stop partway through because I'm tired. Then feel good about doing something without finishing. Helping people set up arcade systems for themselves or mass collections of comics they always wanted to read on a tablet. I like to look for cool rocks. Me too. I tumble them also. Sometimes I like to sit mostly still, only moving the essential parts of my body, like my thumbs, to run around in a Pokemon game to encounter potentially thousands, hoping that eventually one of them will be a different color and it'll make a little bling bling. Some might call it insanity. I like to call it shiny hunting. I am a murderer. You are next. Finally. Not you. It's not funny if you want it. Hey, stop pushing. You gotta wait in line like the rest of us. Sorry. I find strangers on the internet in bad situations to pray for. But just no subs are in. Unfortunate. Goldmine. Wow, that's really beautiful. Watching plane constructions from the 80s. I have a siphon coffee maker and a subscription to one of my local roasters. So I suppose it would be making coffee. Laying on the floor and questioning my existence. Don't recommend doing this on acid. I paint pornographic folk art paintings. They're not always pornographic, but they frequently are. What's a pornographic folk art painting? Programming. I do it for hours a day after work and would do it for work if anyone would hire me. I love it. I've loved doing it for a long time. But everyone I know that went to college for comps, I can't really fathom just doing it for fun. I dress up in leather and steal and beat my friends who are dressed likewise with sticks. They call me master and I call them sir. Camping all alone in forests. People might think that I'm crazy, and by doing that you would put yourself in danger, but it's that bad. It is dangerous, but it mostly depends on where you live. I like to choose the location when the sun is still up, set up my camp and do some exploring of the surroundings because most of the time you find really cool stuff. The night is quiet. A fire is essentially the way to go because it scares away most of the predators, but I still like to keep on my toes just in case. Then I eat and go to sleep and hope I don't wake up in heaven. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.